Now the first thing is that why do we use TestNG and what TestNG is, right? What is the purpose of using TestNG, right? And then we'll see how to install it and all. Look, till now in the earlier classes we have seen how to write simple programs. Okay, how to test links and all the other stuff. Okay, bulk extraction of objects, but we never made test cases. Okay, we never made test cases. I taught you everything, how to read from Excel file. I taught you everything. Look, in the real time the situation is like this. That is, suppose these are your Selenium tests. These are the test cases you have made. Okay, and the requirement will be that you want to run these test cases in a certain order, or you want to run these test cases parallelly on grid to save time, right? Apart from that, you would have the requirement that you want to read the data from the Excel file, okay, or you want to generate some reports as well. These are HTML reports. Okay, you want to do some logging as well. Okay, apart from that there are many other requirements. Okay, so each test case has to generate some reports, read the data, then generate some logs and all. Okay, so to do this you need to keep a centralized controller in between. Okay, this controller will read the data from the Excel file, call the corresponding test cases in a certain order or parallelly, okay, generate the reports, do the logging, help you in logging, right? So this centralized controller is TestNG. People also use like frameworks like JUnit, okay, or BDD solutions are also available, like Cucumber is there, JBehave is there, right? Okay, so look, I cannot cover all of them in this single class, but I can cover one of them, and the pre-recorded sessions which we have on the website qtpselenium.com, they have got all the ones, right? Now how do you manage this particular situation wherein uh, you coordinate between the test cases and the data and all, everything like this? Okay, for that we'll study TestNG. Right. Now the first thing is you need to install TestNG. Okay. To install TestNG, right, just go to Google, right, go to google.com and type over here TestNG Eclipse. Okay, you'll get the first link, testng.org. This is the official website of TestNG. Okay, now at times, let me talk about brief. People also want to learn JUnit. Okay, there is no harm in learning JUnit, but the issue is that in there TestNG has got more superior features than JUnit. Okay, and preferably I also prefer it, right? It helps running on grid in a parallel way. If you want to run your test cases on a grid, it will help you a lot. Okay, so that's why I'm teaching you TestNG, right? So you go to this link, install the plugin, right, and scroll down. I hope everybody is using Eclipse 3.4 or above. Okay, so you copy this URL, right? I'll give this URL on the Skype chat as well. Right, copy this URL and go to help, install new software. Okay, go here and paste the URL. Just hold on, let it come. What is happening? Just a minute, it's taking a little time. I'll close it and open it again. Yeah, paste the URL and hit the enter button of the keyboard. Okay, you will see TestNG coming up over here. Make sure you are connected to the internet. Okay, you have to hit the enter button after pasting the URL. Okay, and you click on next, next, and Eclipse will restart. Right, it will get installed as a plugin inside Eclipse. Right, if you go to Window Show View, okay, and click on Other, fine, and under Java you will be able to see TestNG. So if you are able to see this TestNG, that means TestNG has been successfully installed. Okay, right, so this is how it works. Fine, now once you have installed TestNG, how to use it? Okay, let me make a new project over here. Okay, I'll make a new Java project known as day 11 TestNG. Right, okay, and I'll add the sorry, nothing to add into this. Right, so I'll make a new package inside this folder known as test cases. Package is like a folder inside the folder. Okay, so I made a package known as test cases. Now in TestNG, the first thing is that we make test cases. Right, we role of TestNG in a framework, annotations and all. I'm going to cover all of these. Right, so we make test cases. Right, suppose you make a new class over here and I'll call it as, say, session test. Okay, right, so there is no main function in TestNG. Alright, there are annotations. Right, you can make an annotation at the rate test, say public void do login. Okay, and I'll just write system.out.println logging in. So this at the rate test is known as an annotation. This denotes that this function is actually your test case. Okay, if you move your mouse over this error, you will see the option add the TestNG library in the project. Okay, so I'll add it. Fine, you will see that TestNG gets added as a library in the project. Okay, you need to add it as a library and then move the mouse again over the error and import the test annotation. So the import statement will come up on the top with the test for the test annotation. Right. Similarly, I can have multiple test functions in a class. For example, do login, do send mail, and do logout. Right. Then I can print logging in, sending mail, and logging out. Okay. So when you run this code, you can run it in two ways. First is you can right click, say run as TestNG test. If you don't get this option, you can go to run configurations, right, and you can simply click on the run button, it will execute. Okay, right, or what you can do is you can select TestNG over here and run it as well, right? But the best way is directly click on the run button and TestNG will automatically understand and it will execute it as a TestNG test. Okay, in the console you will get the output as total test runs are 3, failures are 0, skips are 0. Okay, apart from that you will have a tab over here, results of running the class test, right? If you click on the results, you will see all the three functions have got green mark on them, so that means they have executed successfully. Okay, apart from that, HTML reports, right? Yeah, I'll come over to it. We can run using XML as well. Just hold on. right? So HTML reports are also generated, right? If you right click on the project and you refresh your project, okay, you will have a test output folder under which you will have index.html. Fine, you can open this index.html in your in your browser. Okay, you can right click on index.html, go to the properties, copy the path, and you can open it in the browser, right? It's something like this, that these three functions are passing successfully. Okay, this is not a very impressive report. Okay, we will be studying about XSLT reports. XSLT reports in few days, right? XSLT reports, they look like these, right? This is what XSLT report it looks like. It's a graphical report. Fine, so we'll study about that. Okay, so you just be with me, right? So this means that by writing @test annotation, you can simply make this a test case and run it. Fine, make a function a test case and run it. Okay, now if you look at the output, it is printing logging in, logging out, and sending email. The order is not the same. The order in which you have written the test cases, don't expect them to execute in the order from top to bottom. Okay, right, this is getting executed, then log out, and then send email, but I want to execute them in a certain order, right? So for that you have to prioritize your test cases in TestNG, right? You'll have to write over here that this test case has got priority equals to 1, right? This test case has got priority 2, and this test has got priority 3. Okay, so when you run it now, you will see that it's running properly, logging in, sending mail, and logging out, right? Okay, fine. Now let me make another test. Look, I am not writing Selenium code right now. I am teaching you the features of TestNG. Alright, right. Now let me make a new class over here. Right. I'll call it validations. How do you do validations in TestNG? Okay, for example, you have got @test annotation, public void, say verify user. Okay, some test cases there, verify user. Okay, you import the test annotation, right? Now what is testing? What do you want to test on a website? When you test, you compare the expected with the actual result, right? Okay, for that we have got assertions, right? There is a class known as assert, which is actually responsible for validating stuff. Okay, it's an inbuilt class inside TestNG. If you write assert dot, you will get a lot of functions. Okay, for example, assert equals. Make sure when you select this function, then assert class from org.testng.assert is imported. Okay, sometimes the JUnit assert class, JUnit has also got assertions. Okay, sometimes JUnit assert class, it gets added, and JUnit is a separate framework, so don't do that mistake. Okay, so you compare the actual and expected value over here. The actual value is the one which will come from your application with the help of Selenium, right? Expected value will be keeping it later on in the Excel file, right? So if you keep, suppose like a dummy value I write over here, expected and actual both are A and A, and if I run this test, it runs and it passes, right? But if I write A and B, which are not equal, I am asserting equal over here. That means make sure that both the values are equal, and if I run this test will fail. Everything will come in red. that is expected B but found A. If you read the message, the error message over here, right, it will tell you that I was expecting B but I got A. Right. Fine. Now sometimes you use assert equals most of the time. Sometimes you have to put some condition, that is assert dot assert true, a condition and a message. What does this means? Assert dot assert true. This means that make sure that this condition evaluates to true. For example, 8 greater than 2. This is true, right? 8 is greater than true, and some error message you write over here. Now in case this condition evaluates to false, for example 8 greater than 12 I will write, then this assertion will fail the test case and this error message will be thrown. If I run this code, this will fail and you will see that some error message is printed in the result at the bottom. So assert true, it might look a little weird to you that how will we use it or what is it actually. Okay, it wants that the first parameter should evaluate to true. If it is not, then it will throw this error message. For example, we had made the function, right, is element present. Remember, we had made that function is element present. You used to send the XPath of the element in that function. That element used to return you true or false. Okay, so if the element is present on the page, it's okay. If it is not, if this function returns you false, then you can throw the error message that element not found. Something like this. This assertion can be used in these kind of scenarios. Right, that is, in case the element is not found on the page, right, this function returns you false, you can present this error message in the log in the output. Okay, right. So there are two types of assertions which I told you. One is assert equals, which compares the values. One is assert true, which is for a condition. Right, that condition should evaluate to true, otherwise it will throw the error message. Fine. The third is that sometimes you know that your test has failed. Okay, you are very sure about it, that you are somewhere wrong in the program and your test case has definitely failed. Okay, it happens at times. It happens at times. For example, there is a try catch block. Okay, some exception comes up, say element not found exception. You catch that exception and you are very sure that this test has failed. Or suppose you count that you are doing a scenario wherein you need to go to a website and you want, say, 5 links out of that website. Okay, instead of 5 you are able to just see 2. So you are very sure that fine, this is not what I wanted. Okay, and I want to fail the test. So you just write over there assert dot fail with the error message. Right, so this will deliberately fail the test case. Okay, right. So this is how assertions they work. It's very simple, don't complicate it. Right. Satish, I'll come over to it. Just hold on. Verification and assertions. Right. Just hold on. Okay. Now, if I take the above example, session test, wherein I had the do login, do send mail, and do logout test cases. Right. Now, you know, these 3 tests, they are executing fine, but what if the login test it fails? If login test case it fails, we don't want to execute the send mail and the logout test. For example, over here I write assert.fail. Okay, deliberately failing the login test. Alright, if I run this code, it will run and say that the login test has failed, but the send mail and the logout test both have got executed successfully. Now this is not we wanted. We want that both the tests should not execute or they should be skipped. Right? Okay, so you have to introduce dependency over here, that these two test cases are dependent on the login test. Okay, we have introduced priority, that this is the order in which they want the tests should execute. For dependency you have to write like this, that is, this test case. Look, if you just write DE and put control space bar, you will see all the features of TestNG which you can fire on this particular test. Okay, depends on groups, that this test is, or depends on methods, sorry, that this test case is dependent on the methods like login test. Okay, you can write the same thing over here. Right, so you are making both the test cases dependent on the login test. Now if I run the whole scenario now, you will see that, just a minute, it's not showing as skipped. Generally it comes up in the reports as well. It's not coming up somehow. Yeah, it came up now. Maybe there was some issue. Okay, the other two test cases are getting skipped. The first test case is getting failed. Yellow means skipped, red means failed, and green means passed. Okay, there are only three status for the test. Okay, you can make the function dependent on multiple methods as well. You can give the method names separated by comma, say for example do login and do send mail, that this test case is dependent on both these functions. Okay, right. Now this was about, I'll just brief you what I did. I made test cases, I executed them in priority wise in a certain order. Okay, I told you how assertions work. Assertions, they compare expected and actual values, right? And then after that I told you how to make the test cases dependent on each other. Okay, now if you, at times, you know what happens, you don't want to run a test. You have 100 test cases and out of 100 you want to run just say 10 of them. You don't want to run 90 test cases. So you want to skip the 90 test cases, right? So how do you skip a test case? Deliberately skipping a test case. This is deliberately failing a test case. I don't want to fail it, I want to skip it. Okay, to skip a test case, right, all you need to write is, hold on, you deliberately throw an exception, throw new skip exception. Okay, when you run this code, you will see that, see the login test, it skips. It's not red in color, it's yellow, it is skipped. So other two test cases were dependent on it, they were also skipped. right? So it's not a rocket science, okay, it's a very logical thing. Fine, there are features in
So
TestNG.
to skip a test, can we use another command like test iterate test annotation is enabled is equal to false?
Look, if you write @test enabled equals to false, I use it, but the problem is it never comes up in the reports then.
Okay.
Okay, so you want it in the reports as well that the test should be skipped, right? There is a functionality known as enabled equals to false. What will happen is that if you write this test case will not execute, but it will not come in the reports as well. So that's why I prefer this, because this actually writes that the test has skipped in the reports.
Okay. And one more thing, in the depends on method, when we give dependency on do login and do send mail, in case if do login it fails, does it go to do send mail or it stops execution there?
In case do login fails, it will stop the execution and it will mark both the test cases as skipped. Nothing inside the test cases it gets executed.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. So the question was that if this fails, then what will happen? Okay, both the tests will be skipped, right? Now, look, there is a lot to TestNG. It's not that you just come to this class and go for learn TestNG and go home. Okay, it's not like that. TestNG is a world in itself. It's huge. It's not made for Selenium. TestNG, JUnit, these are unit testing frameworks. They are not made for Selenium, but because of their features, we use them with Selenium. Okay, if you look at the ninth video, it's like more than 5 to 6 hours, right? I have told a lot of things over here, custom report generation, Maven and all. Lot of things I have added as well under new topics. Okay, so just go through this as well if when you have spare time, because in the online training it is really impossible for me to cover so many things. Okay, it is very vast, but I will cover the things with which at least we can move forward. Okay, right. So I would suggest you that have a look at this training video 9 as well completely. It's not 5 hours, it's actually more than 5 hours now. Okay, now the next thing. Next thing is I talked about running, I talked about skipping, I talked about failing, I talked about prioritizing, dependency, right? Sometimes I want to have work with different annotations of TestNG. Okay, now there are many annotations in TestNG, right? For example, uh, right click, you create a new class. Hold on, new, go to other. Okay,
I
under,
have a quick question.
yeah,
Yeah, when we say for example, we have n number of test cases and say 10 test cases, and then we have 11 test case which is dependent on the first 10 methods. So in that case, do we still specify all the methods in the curly braces, or do we
yes.
have to skip the last one if the
You
previous
need
one
to
is being
you need to
skipped?
mention all
Or
the functions on which
sorry?
the you need to mention all the functions on which that test is dependent.
Okay, so there is no other way of
No,
writing
no,
it.
no,
We
no.
have to
That's
specify.
the best. That's how it works.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Virani, you can do that. Okay, I'll talk about batch execution in some time.
And if we don't prioritize the test cases, what is the order of execution of the test cases?
Generally, it is alphabetical. I've seen.
Okay.
Okay, so you go to new over here, right? New and go to other. You will see the option test ng over here. You make a test ng class. When you try to make it, you see that TestNG gives you so many annotations. Okay, let's talk about them, right? What they do, and they will be helpful, right? For example, in the session test only, if I make an annotation at the rate before test, okay, public void, I'll just make a function before and print before test, okay, and then at the rate after test and public void after and after test, okay, right? As the name suggests, if you want to do something before or after the test case, you can do in these functions, and when you run it, you will see that before test and okay, let's not skip the test case, let's print regular stuff and run it. You will see that in the output it is printing before test, after test, and then executing all the test cases. So if you want to do some things before running all the test cases, for example, you want to open a browser, okay, you can open it in before test, and after test you can close it, and that browser can be used in all the tests. Or you want to connect to the database, it's up to you, right? Now there are many other annotations, like for example, there is an annotation known as at the rate before method, okay, public void before method and system.out.println before method and then at the rate after method public void after method and system.out.println, you type inside it after method. So when you run this, you will see that before and after method, they get executed every time whenever you want to run a test. So right, so suppose you want to open a browser and close a browser at the end of every test case, so you can use these methods, right? So it's, you just use the annotation once, but they get executed before and after each method execution, right? Yeah, this is something like precondition and postcondition. Okay, but it depends how you make your framework, whether you, how till what depth you use these annotations. There are many others as well. That's why I'm telling you, just watch the video number 9, you will get idea about everything. But you know, generally we use these ones. Okay, right. Now at times you want to run one test with multiple sets of data. Okay, that is also supported. Right, for example, I'll make a new class over here known as login test, right, and I'll write at the rate test public void do login. Now login test will execute, but I want to run this test case multiple times. I want to log in and test my login with different sets of data. Okay, for that we use a data provider. Now listen to this carefully. Okay, public object get data. This data provider returns your two-dimensional object array. Okay, this object array in the memory looks like this. This object array in the memory has got rows and columns. Okay, number of rows are equal to number of times you want to run the test. If you want to run the test case 4 times, then you will have 4 rows. And number of columns are equal to parameters in the test case. For example, username, browser, password. Okay, right. Every cell has an index. This is 0, 0, 0th row, 0th column, 0, 2. This is 1, 1. Okay, but the number of rows are equal to number of times you want to run the test, and number of columns are equal to number of data sets you have. For example, if I write a program like this, object array, 2 rows, 3 columns. Okay, hold on, you just keep it blank. You write like this. Okay, that means these are the number of rows and these are the number of columns. Okay, so I want to run my test with 2 rows and 3 columns. Okay, right, so it's actually rows and columns. So I can put the data in the first row, that is data 00 is, say, my browser name. I want to run it on Mozilla. 0102 is, say, the username 1, password 1, and then comes the first column, say Chrome, with username U2, password P2. Later on we'll read the data from the Excel file. Right now I'm putting it over here. Okay, and this function will return you a 2-dimensional data array. So you have got certain rows, columns, you fill up the data in the complete array. Okay, so first the test case would be executed with this set of data and then with this set. Okay, so the step 1 is making the object array and filling it. Okay, this is the step 1. Step 2 is linking the test with the data provider. You have to tell that this test has got this data provider. Okay, you have to write over here that the data provider of this test is getData. This is the second step. Okay, the first step is building the data, the second step is linking. And the third and the most important step is that you have to make sure that number of input parameters in this function, okay, are equal to number of, okay, the number of input parameters in this function are equal to number of columns you have. If you have 3 columns, then you should have 3 parameters. Okay, string browser, string username, and string password. That's it. Now when we run the code with TestNG, TestNG will automatically understand that this is the test, this is the data provider. It will go to data provider, read the data. It will verify that whether, if you have got 3 columns, then number of input parameters are whether they are 3 or not. Yes, it should be 2, sorry. Okay, whether it is 3 or not, there should be 3 input parameters. Then it will call the test automatically number of times. If I run it, you will see that, see, the test has executed 2 times. Okay, right, so that is how it works. Just try to make this program after the class yourself, you will realize. Okay, fine. Right, now the last thing about TestNG which I want to tell you is, if I want to run all the 3 Java files together, if I want to group the test cases, these 3 Java files, and run them together, I can actually do that with the help of a file known as testng.xml. Okay, this is the file. I'll copy the file, paste it under the project. I'm directly pasting it under the project, not under your source folder. Okay, this has got, in this file you mention all the test cases which you want to run, and you can run them. This is first line is the name of your suite. Okay, then you can mention your test cases. For example, the first test which I want to run is, say, session test. It is present inside the package test cases I'm sorry dot session test. Make sure you give this name correctly, the package name and the name of your test and all, everything correctly. Okay, the second is that validation test. Okay, it is under the package test cases dot validations. Right, the third test case which you want to run is, say, login test. It is under the package test cases dot login test. Okay, so these are the test groups. Okay, and all the tests which are mentioned in this, they'll be executed from top to bottom. All you need to do is that you need to right click on this XML file, run as TestNG suite. That's it. And when you run it, in the results you will see the everything running up. Okay, right click, run as TestNG suite. You see that this case has failed. This test had 3 methods, all of them executed. Login test was executed 2 times, once in Mozilla, once in Chrome. Okay, and in the output folder you will have the reports for everything. If I refresh my output folder, you will have these reports. You see that? Now that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use this TestNG framework, and I'm going to teach you the page object model right now. Okay, we'll be starting off with the page object model type of a framework from tomorrow onwards. Okay, and please do learn whatever I have taught you till date. We will be applying everything. Fine, and obviously we'll be generating better reports than the ones which are generating right now. Okay.